Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and Sony's last release just went double bronze, and I'm joking. That's my way of saying that their last game release honestly just completely flopped. It's a game called Concord, and I haven't done much research into it. I don't know much about the game, but what I do know is that when I was reading Forbes this morning, I saw that the company only made $1 million off of this game, which they've spent a lot of time developing. From what I understand, they were working on this game for upwards of 5 years. I think it was between 5 and 7 years they've been working on this game. And it only saw, I want to say, roughly around, I think they said 700 streams or something like that, or 700 downloads. And honestly, it's just not enough. I forgive me for not getting all of the raw numbers accurate, but in a nutshell, the game only wound up generating about $1 million in revenue for the company, which just isn't enough. From what I understand, Spider-Man in its first week or in its first month, Spider-Man 2, that is, it generated the company upwards of 750 million, right? So clearly Sony's missing something. Sony's not able to get back on track. And for whatever reason, it seems that the games that they're putting a lot of time, energy, and effort into, those seem to be the games that seem to be flopping the hardest. And I really just a part of me doesn't understand why, but also a part of me does understand why. And I think it's because the folks that are creating these games and releasing these games aren't necessarily thinking with the mindset of a gamer. I think a lot of these companies are creating games with an underlying agenda, whether that's to push or promote a certain narrative. I'll leave that up to you to decide. But it just doesn't seem like the concentration and the focus is really on what gamers actually want, traditional gamers actually want. And I kind of touched on this before when I talked about the whole emasculation of the heroes in gaming, and how, we're just not seeing the traditional, main characters that we used to see. And this is not to say that the main character of a video game has to be a man. I mean, there are plenty of games, amazing top tier franchises that have had females as the main character. If you look at the Tomb Raider games, right? Tomb Raider, she was the main character for one of the longest running franchises in PlayStation history, right? Lara Croft is a staple in gaming. I think everyone would admit that when you think about PlayStation and you think about Tomb Raider, she's just one of the main characters that you think about. But I feel like there's been this shift and there's been this transition, and a lot of the narratives behind these games are what I think is turning a lot of gamers off. Once you start getting into the game, and by getting into the game, I don't mean actually like playing the game in terms of engaging in the action, but when you have to listen and read through or watch the different cutscenes in these games to understand the story, I think it's the story that's turning a lot of folks off from wanting to play these games and indulge in these games. And it honestly, I think, is driving gamers to go back to some more of the indie titles. And when I look at even my PlayStation 4 collection, which I pretty much stopped collecting for the PlayStation 4 earlier this year, I was collecting for it, but then I paused when I realized that the majority of the games that I was picking up weren't even really like first party titles. I've got a lot of limited run stuff with the Castlevania collection here. Blasphemous, Fist of the North Star, Val Ferris. You see some shoot 'em ups that I got down here. Rez, Crisis Wing, Streets of Rage 4. I guess Ghost of Tsushima is definitely a first party title. I love this game, by the way, but this this is a game that is giving gamers what they want. Um, Attack on Titan, Eve. So, I mean, as you can see, like my PS4 collection is small, but it's not really made up of a lot of like first party titles that, you would see or read about in like a PlayStation magazine or anything like that. Here's one of my favorites, Berserk and the Band of the Hawk. I kept running into copies of this game at GameStop until they just evaporated. I don't see that anymore. But yeah, it's just a very tricky time for Sony, and I don't know who's making the decisions with a lot of these companies. I did a video, or I watched a video about Ubisoft and how their staff has completely changed. And with the changing of their staff, there's been this, sharp decline in, the quality of first-person shooter games, because I think they were the ones behind Modern Warfare, Call of Duty, those games. And it's just a very tough time. It reminds me of a conversation that I had when it comes to even like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. For a while, Marvel kept on trying to give the audience movies that they thought the audience wanted to see. But the audience responded with their dollars and cents and said, no, this is not what we want to see. And it wasn't until Disney started to lose a lot of money because they were putting out so much cash making these films that no one wanted to go and see, that they realized, okay, we need to return back to what made us popular in the first place. And we need to go back to making films and movies that our core audience will enjoy, which is why you saw the resounding positive response to the Wolverine Deadpool movie, because it kind of takes us back to what we know and love about Marvel movies. And I think that the same thing is probably going to have to happen when it comes to Sony. I think they're probably going to get to a point where the sales numbers are so bad that they're going to recognize that their customer base is speaking with their wallet. And nothing speaks louder than dollars and cents. When people are no longer buying the products that you're putting out, when people are no longer subscribing, when people are no longer downloading, when people are no longer engaging with what you're offering, that's going to scream the loudest to Sony that changes need to be made, and that they need to kind of recalibrate and figure out who it is they're actually trying to service. And I think once they're able to do that, they should be able to get back on track, because they've got a lot of really great IP, a lot of great products. I think the PlayStation 5 has a lot of potential, but I think the clock is ticking on their ability, or on the time frame that they have to right this ship before people just completely write them off. But I could be absolutely wrong. Let me know about Sony's last flop, what you think about it. Do you think the last game, Concord, was a double bronze, or do you think it went double platinum? I'm interested to know what you thought. So Y2K Collector, I'll catch you in the next video. Take it easy.